Hi everybody. Today I just want to talk about 14 drunk habits that I'm just so glad that I don't have anymore. And if you don't know me, you're not familiar with my journey. I originally quit 2017 to 2022. That's quitting alcohol, of course. Stupidly thought I could moderate drinking one, two drinks round at friend's house and calling it a night. We all know that never ever happens, and stupidly got ended up back in bad habits. But in July of 2025, I finally quit the booze again after a good 50 attempts as always. So I wrote down these the other day, similar to a video I released a few days ago, but this time it'll be the 14 drunk habits that I'm so glad I don't have anymore. And believe you me, there was a lot more than these 14. The first one is drunk messaging people at night. And honestly, it got to the stage, and it did go around in cycles as well. Some months I was worse than others, but drunk messaging people late at night became a real problem. And I was lucky that it wasn't anything really, really bad, but I was so bad at drunk messaging people 1, 2, 3 in the morning. Mostly it would be things like, are you still up? You still there? And when you wake up in the morning and they've not replied, and you're able to delete the message on WhatsApp so they don't even see it, it's always a winner. But when drunk messaging, as we know, is just one of the worst things that you can do, and I'm glad it's a thing of the past. The second one is not remembering drunken Facetimes. I remember waking up in the morning and realizing, maybe not instantly, but later that day or a week later, that I had like a 27-minute FaceTime with somebody I used to work with, or one of my friends I live abroad with, that live abroad, and I'm still friends with. And that's just crazy. I couldn't remember one thing, and as always, it was always a good 4, 5, 6 hours into a session, and I have no idea, absolutely no idea of what I said at all. And even if you gave me all the money in the world, I could not remember one thing. What an absolute shambles. The third drunk habit I'm glad I don't have anymore is thinking that I was so funny, thinking that I was Billy Connolly in a night out. And some of the stupid things I would do and say just to try and get a laugh is, once again, just embarrassing. It's just something that I think most people maybe try and do. There's always a few jokers in the pub. I definitely wasn't one of them, but I do remember times thinking when I was telling stories that I was telling the world's greatest and funniest story, and it would either land flat or I would get 5 or 6 fake laughs. But I'm glad that's a thing of the past as well. Another drunk habit was ordering ridiculous amounts of takeaways. And I think I've even made a dedicated video on this one. The amount of money wasted is just incredible. And back in the day, I remember Uber Eats, Deliveroo, you could actually get a decent bargain. But for some reason, I went from maybe ordering McDonald's to ordering posh pizzas, for example. I'm ordering one of them for one. I mean, you're a good £20. Time you add the £3 fee on for this, the £2 fee on for that, and the £5 delivery fee, you spent £30 on something you could have went to the shop for and pretty much bought, a frozen pizza, an oven pizza, and you would have saved, it would have been 90% of the cost, which is quite wild, but something I definitely don't miss, and my wallet certainly doesn't miss. The fifth one is spending loads of money without realizing. I used to have master budgets during the week, especially when I wasn't busy at work. I'm quite good at Excel, and I would have all these summaries and formulaed up links, etc., with how much money I've got coming in and where it's all going, and percentages of this and that, which was getting paid into a savings account, etc. But it was just amazing. 2, 3 drinks in, I just didn't care. I don't know if I thought that someday I was going to win the lottery or something, or become the CEO of Apple, but I just didn't really care. And before you know it, you're spent £100, £200, £300 in a night out, thinking I'm Bill Gates again at the bar buying everyone drinks. But it was just embarrassing, and spending that much money. Honestly, if I could just get 10% back of that, I'm pretty sure I could pay off my car in an instant, maybe even buy a Ferrari. I'm not joking. The sixth one is saying things that I would regret the next day. And I think, like I mentioned before, I think I was quite lucky that I'm not that kind of guy that gets into arguments with people, etc. But you would just say things that are just completely stupid, you know. I think one of my big ones was jumping into a WhatsApp chat with mates and dropping a big political statement and I think at the time I thought everyone was sitting on their phone just looking at it going, yep, Bryn nailed it. All the world's problems have now been solved. And if he was Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, there would be world peace in a minute. And it was quite embarrassing. And the worst part is, especially if it's with mates, they would just slaughter you back, and you just are a bit sheepish the next time you meet them, and it's pretty embarrassing, to be honest. The seventh one is staying out way later than I planned. And just like with my budgeting skills, I would have grand plans of coming home at 9 o'clock, and if I was going on holiday the next day, I would be like, right, I'm going out for two, then I'm coming back, I'm ironing all my clothes, I'm laying my passport out, I'll have my bag ready, waiting for me at the door with the passport and boarding passes all laid out. And before you know it, it was 3 a.m. as usual. And again, it's one of those things, I have no idea why I planned literally anything, let alone not staying out late. Because I would say 99% of the time, I was probably the one leading everybody on to stay out later. Having a few beers in somebody's house isn't enough. That slowly escalates to going to a bar, and before you know it, you're on your phone checking what clubs are open that night. Just, again, absolutely pointless. The eighth one is just getting into pointless debates, and I'm glad that's a drunken habit I don't do anymore. Again, never that type of guy to argue with anyone, but the amount of debates I had over stuff, especially politics, I mean, what a clown. Again, thinking I would drop an absolute truth bomb, maybe something I'd watched if there was a global issue, maybe I was deep diving into what it really means and listening to a podcast, and I heard this really good quote, and I've been waiting to use it all night, and somebody brings up that global affair, and here's me, the world's saviour, turning up, and I would drop that truth bomb expecting the whole pub to gasp. you know just embarrassing, completely embarrassing. The ninth one is making plans I never intended to keep, and once again I was the king of doing this. I remember once my mate's cousin was over from Canada, and we went out on a night out with him. They were in Aberdeen when I lived there, and of course, yeah, bring him out. And he came out with us. And I think by about 8 p.m. that night, we were already looking at flights to fly over to Canada for New Year. Just, and then you wake up the next morning and you're thinking, and this is back in my student days, I mean, where I'm going to find like £3,000-4,000 to fly over to Canada for a party on New Year's Eve. Yeah, I don't know where I got that one from, but just making grand plans all the time that you're never going to keep. But in your brain, your drunken brain at the time when you're 10 pints in, no problem, YOLO, I only live once, I'll stick it on the credit card. Again, what a clown. The 10th one is, and it's quite annoying looking back, was ignoring how tired I actually was. And I remember, especially the second time I started binge drinking again, it was 2022, so I'd have been 38, if my math is correct, all the way up to when I was about 41, I think it was. And I was just so tired a lot of the time, and you just couldn't hide it. You just can't get away with it when you're in your 30s and 40s anymore. And I just wonder how much damage I did to my body, forcing yourself to get through it. And it was amazing the amount of times where, and I'm sure everybody listening's had this, when you're feeling rough and you're tired, but then all of a sudden 2-3 pints down and you get that second wind, and before you know it, you're in a club, etc., and especially on holidays, and you wake up the next day and your body must just be absolutely ruined inside, because it certainly was ruined on the outside. Another drunken habit, and it's the 11th one that I'm glad I don't have anymore, is just eating crisps and nuts all day. When I was drinking, I just didn't have an appetite when I was drinking. Eating's cheating. And I've got mates that one of the reasons they want to quit drinking is because they just eat like monsters. But I was terrible for it. And the big downside of that is as well, if you've been drinking Friday, Saturday, and a few beers out at a barbecue on the Sunday and you've not been eating, your stomach's ruined. And I just remember eating that, and I remember I could go 10, 12 packs of crisps in a day easy with bags and bags of HP nuts, especially these days with shrinkflation. You know, HP nuts were maybe that big before, and now they're about that big, so you can nail, especially the bacon rashers if you're from the UK. They used to be my favourite, but I honestly think I could eat 24 of them in a day. And just to do that and put my body through it, salted peanuts especially, just a really bad habit that I'm glad I'm rid of. The 12th one was cancelling plans the next day because of a hangover. And again, grand plans as always. You know, you're maybe at a wedding, and you know, you meet the bride's cousin and you're at the bar and you're like, oh, I'm staying at the hotel, let's meet tomorrow at 10 or 9 for breakfast, and we'll go get a Bloody Mary and do this and that, and we'll, you know, climb a mountain, etc. And you wake up in the morning and it's just more cancelled plans. And I think that can get you into a lot of trouble the next day, you know, especially if it's with a loved one or a good friend. And there were a few occasions where I just hit it really hard and I couldn't do it, you know, or I would try my best. And, you know, maybe I'd promise somebody I was going to watch a match with them at the pub, and then 5 minutes in, I'm like, I'm sorry, I really need to go home. I know, and it's just something that you shouldn't really do to a loved one, or a good friend, but it happened way too much. The 13th drunk habit is forgetting conversations completely. And it's similar to the FaceTiming one, where I just couldn't remember it. And I remember so many times, like friends I would be out with who didn't really drink that much, or maybe just drunk a few and then went home early, or they maybe just took the car. I would just always forget what we chatted about. And there's nothing worse than when you meet up in the pub a few weeks later, or the week after, and one of your mates hasn't been as drunk as you, and you're talking to them, and you know, you're like, oh, this guy Dave at my work, and they're like, oh yeah, I know, you told me. And you're like, okay, yeah. Oh, you're never going to us. You hear about Steve? Oh yeah, you told me. And then you just, especially when you're older, you're like, oh my God, I've turned into one of those folk that can't remember what they said all the time. And it's just something small thing, but a massive benefit of not boozing is actually remembering who you FaceTimed, and what you actually spoke about, which is worrying. The last drunken habit, and was an expensive one, was spilling drinks on my laptop and my phone when I went to bed. I, I think I went through about 6 laptops in about 18 months. When I lived in Norway, I just had this side table that was really small, and every time I went to bed, I spilled. And I mentioned in videos before, if you've not been to if you're new to the channel, I had this amazing gift that as soon as I was really, really, really hammered, something just went off in my brain, and I would find my way home with my keys, with my phone, etc. And I'd phone up my mates the next day and say, was I all right last night? Anything happened? You know, you got anxiety? They're like, no, it was about midnight and you just said you were going for a taxi and you went home. And it was like a miracle. But one of the bad things is that I would always, and I can't remember any of this, of course, I would go and just get a big pint glass or one of those big Steiner glasses, and I would put it right next to my bed. But then during the night in half sleeps, etc., I went to bed and stuck on like a World War II documentary, and I put that on the side table and just listened to that, or a World War II documentary, a true crime documentary, and I would have just fallen asleep. But during the night, I'm kind of reaching for my juice or my water, and I would spill it over the laptop and or my phone. And it was a really, really bad habit. And since it was a drunken thing, like absolute robot mode, I couldn't get rid of it because I would just keep doing it again and again. And people would always say to me, like, stop taking your laptop and, you know, a glass of water to bed. But I didn't know it. I didn't think about it at the time, and I can't even remember doing it. So there was no lesson learned because I couldn't even remember taking the laptop there in the first place. Absolute crazy. But, well, hopefully enjoyed these 14 drunk habits that I'm glad I don't have anymore. I've got loads of videos coming out in the future, as always trying to do a daily video, and glad so many people find them useful. But take care, please hype the video if you can, like and subscribe and all that, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.